Are you tired sitting behind that desk? Do you feel your right foot twitching all day imagining you're behind the wheel pressing on the pedal? Miss that wind in your hair and rumble of the pavement? Well, there are a ton of jobs out there that involve driving. So smash your computer, quit your desk job, and let's get you behind the wheel. Doesn't sound too bad, eh? Here are 8 of the most fun driving jobs that you could actually work. Let's go. What's the next best thing to being rich and famous? Well, driving rich and famous people around and being a witness to their extravagant lifestyles. Duh. Being a chauffeur to celebrities gives you the opportunity to interact with some of the biggest stars in the world on a daily basis. Plus, when you tell your normal friends that you've been bussing around Denzel Washington and Katy Perry, you just get to watch their eyes pop out of their head. And sure, once in a while, you're gonna get a celeb that's not exactly polite. I'm talking to you, Ellen. Apparently, she's got quite the mean streak, but more on that in another video. And hear me out. If you play your cards right, you may even get yourself invited to a couple of those ritzy Hollywood parties. And even if you don't sew yourself into the inner circle of Hollywood, you will be raking in the dough. Way more than any presenter on YouTube, because on average, you'll be making between 100 and 150,000 buckaroos a year. Yeah, I said buckaroos, because that is a lot of change. And that's pretty sweet. You get paid to drive people around and keep your car stocked with champagne. And as you know, celebrities want to ride in style. So if you're lucky, you might even be able to drive around a swanky set of wheels like a Maybach or a Rolls. Yeah, there's definitely perks to hanging around the Hollywood elite. But if you could care less about meeting celebs and you'd rather go fast in some sick whips, this next job might be the one for you. So maybe you've given up your childhood dream of becoming a Formula One racer. That's not a bad call. Believe me, I get it. You think I'd be presenting for Ideal if I could be wheel to wheel with Lando Norris and getting paid for it? Well, maybe I'd still do some YouTube on the side. I kind of like it. It's like my dream job. But if you still dream about blazing down the track in a Formula One speed machine, you may be in luck. Being a race car test driver could be an achievable goal if you play your cards right. But if you want to get this job, you're going to have some serious connections and history in driving extreme vehicles. And there's a lot of misconceptions about what a race car test driver actually does. You don't just hop behind the wheel and go pedal to the metal. That's what those Vegas car experiences are for. You see, this job actually requires methodical testing of every aspect of the vehicle at every speed. But don't worry, there are definitely times when you get to test the full speed and feel the G-forces just pressing against your face. And test drivers for consumer cars make between 50 and 60,000 bucks a year. But if you're testing a Formula One race car, you'll be making at least twice that. I mean, if you take it from me, I'd be paying to drive one of those super badass race cars. Getting paid to drive one would be like the ultimate dream job. Dare I say, ideal dream job. And the next job isn't quite as glamorous as whipping around in race cars, but it's definitely fun and extremely achievable. Now here's a job that it seems like pretty much anyone and everyone has had at some point in their life, except me, because I'm lactose intolerant. Yes, I gotta agree, pizza delivery isn't exactly the most glamorous job in the world, but most of my friends that have delivered pizzas in their early life really have enjoyed it. Just think about it. You get to drive around all day, listen to your music on full blast, and get to know the streets of your city. Plus, one of the perks is that you're gonna be able to eat some free pizza if you have a good relationship with your boss. And if you do get pulled over by the police, well, you could probably make a pretty good case that you're running late for a delivery and get out of that ticket. In fact, pro tip, what I've heard is that if you carry an extra pizza specifically for this issue, you're gonna have a clean driving record. Plus, the smells are free. So I think that we can all agree that pizza delivery, that's a bomb job for sure. But this next job instead gives you the opportunity to hop behind the wheel of some of the coolest and rarest cars to ever exist. So this job involves very little driving, but when you are driving, it might be in some of the rarest rides in the world. Auto auctioneers mostly just sell cars at auction, but someone's got to drive those cars from the lot to the auction stage, and that person could be you. I mean, just imagine being the guy that got to drive the Duesenberg SSJ onto the stage right before it sold for $22 million. Just being able to put your hands on the steering wheel of a car that expensive must be like car nirvana. Not to mention that you get to see some of the coolest cars in the world go up for auction and witness the incredible prices that some people are willing to pay for them. If you love cars, a car auctioneer probably is a dream job for you. But if you're more into animals like YouTube Girlfriend, well then you're gonna be smitten for this next gig. You've probably never even heard of this job before, but if you're an animal lover, you definitely need to take a good hard look into being a pet taxi driver. So imagine that you have a pet that needs to get to the vet and you don't have a car. Who you gonna call? Sal? No. Ghostbusters? How's that gonna help? You call a pet taxi. They'll take your pet to and from the vet and make sure it gets the care it needs. So if you like animals and you wanna help save some lives while getting paid for it, check out being a pet taxi driver. The job pays around $60,000 a year on average, and you get to spend every minute of your workday in the presence of cats, dogs, monkeys, and maybe even a couple of sharks. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. But if you're lucky, you get to drive around cool animals and maybe even meet one of the Tiger King celebrities. Oh, Carol Baskin. And real quick, guys, in a couple of states in the US, chimpanzees are legal. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, but it would be pretty cool to roll around with a chimp riding shotgun. Either way, this next job won't involve any close encounters with exotic animals, but you may get to drive some seriously swanky vehicles. Now, I know that it's probably no one's dream job to be a valet, but there are some pretty fun perks to the job. If you're working at, say, the Ritz-Carlton or some Michelin star restaurant, there are going to be some super duper expensive rides pulling up. And if you're like me, you'd give pretty much anything to drive a new Rolls Royce or Bugatti, even if it's just for like 7 seconds. And let me hit you with this. If you're a valet at a nice place, that literally is your job description. Now, as far as salary goes, it's gonna depend on what kind of place you work at and what part of the country you're based in. But if you end up valeting in an upscale spot, you could be raking in a ton of money in tips. And you might even be able to drive a famous person's car if you're lucky. How cool would it be to say that you have driven Samuel L. Jackson's Lamborghini 57S, or Ice-T's Bentley Continental GT, or Brad Danger's Porsche 911. Just kidding. Bad joke. And sure, you may not like those funny hats valets sometimes have to wear, but the rest of the gig sure sounds like a lot of fun. Now, if you really love the act of driving and you like person-to-person interaction, you might want to check out this next job. With increased popularity of apps like Uber and Lyft, there's nearly endless demand for drivers. So if you're down to spend your whole day being behind the wheel and talking to strangers, download an app and get driving. Rideshare drivers usually make between 13 and 17 bucks an hour, which is definitely a livable wage. But if you don't want to drive full-time, fine. Plenty of people out there actually drive in their off hours to get a little extra spending cash. Plus, the life of an Uber driver is definitely interesting. You get to meet some crazy characters, have some enlightening conversations, and yeah, you get to drive around all day in whatever car you choose. Unfortunately, choose wisely because you gotta maintain that car, but hey, there's two sides to every coin. So if you're that kind of person that loves feeling the wind in your face as you're cruising down the highway and you revel in conversation with anyone and everyone, then driving Uber or Lyft might be the perfect gig. And the next job involves a lot of driving, but not the kind of car you might be thinking of. Have you ever been sitting on a plane waiting to take off, absent-mindedly looking out the window, when all of a sudden you notice a guy driving a huge train of trailers full of luggage, and you thought, hey, that looks like fun. I want to do that. I mean, what's not to like about that job? You get to burn down the airport runway operating a sweet vehicle full of people's bags. And the best part is you'd never have to interact with angry customers in the event that you do lose one of those bags. True, if you work this job, you're probably not living in a mansion, but you will make a solid living and get some awesome benefits. These guys make roughly between $30,000 and $54,000 a year, and guess what? You get all the discounts that you could ever want at all the airport restaurants and bars. And you know what that means? After your shift, you can get your discounted Baconator from Wendy's. Sure, even with the discount, you're probably paying a little bit more than you would at a normal restaurant, but still, it's always fun to get a discount. And out of those 8 driving jobs, which one is your favorite? Let us know down below. For me, honestly, I would love to be a pizza delivery guy, but I've always been allergic to dairy, and so that probably just wouldn't go hand in hand. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. And if you're new here, my name is Brad Danger. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We're bringing the heat pretty much every single day. And also, I hope you find your ideal car job. And as always, keep living the ideal lifestyle.